recording, so we'll go ahead and start this policy committee. It is 6:04. Lynn linked in a memo on the parental engagement legislation for House Bill 163. That's a new thing, which we don't have a policy. I like that.
It's what was passed in July, but it kind of just gives some, like all the well-being stuff. So we just passed we're taking the health one, so it's all the little pieces. It's the survey piece. But I just thought it was a good reminder of here's all the components of the parent rights in a nice little snapshot.
Right, and I'm wondering.
These are all the requirements. Okay.
If this would be beneficial to have on our website. I mean, this isn't something we created, it's something from the state.
Yeah, for sure.
So that everyone has the same information, I guess is where I'm going with that. What do you guys think?
Yes. I think you could I would just want to add the actual Idaho code attached to it, so because it references it throughout.
Okay.
It's 33.
6001. Okay.
And that we would just include that.
What do you think, Ramona?
I would have to look at it. So many times they write their recommendations as if it was statute or IDAPA, so I haven't read it, so I don't know.
Okay.
I can't. That would be my only
We could leave it on here and then bring it back, and you guys can give us some direction. I just think the part in the parent rights laws, if you see a change in the student, then it kind of talks about here are some examples of changes that you could see.
Right.
You have to notify parent. I mean, it just kind of. I think it's a good reminder of these are all the things that you're responsible for, but then here's how some applicable.
Well, and I think on one of the policies we had some question on restraint, seclusion. Are we going back to this one?
I think you guys had the feedback from it.
You said to bring it to the board unless there was feedback, and there's feedback at the bottom of that.
This one?
No, keep going, yeah. Keep going. There's the feedback that I got.
Oh,
Kelsey's
okay.
Input.
But is
Not
this...
the survey feedback, it says Kelsey's input. So
there were
there's
some questions that you guys had.
Okay. So Kelsey's input. All right. Do we implement the CPI training? Yes. Okay, so that explains why classrooms get emptied out if a child, if their behavior becomes unruly.
Because the law says the child has to be in imminent danger, or another child, or a staff. There has to be imminent danger present before you can put hands on.
Right, but what this is saying is crisis teams are not allowed to transport students.
Yeah, there's no CPI hold that allows for transportation.
Okay.
There used to be, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and so there was a hold that you could do, a safe hold that you could do, and you could transport a kid. And the idea was that if they were in a calmer state, not as escalated, and so you felt like you could get them there had to be 2 people, and you still had to hold them, but you could get them in a hallway and start walking, and it was safe. But the moment they got escalated again, you were supposed to stop. That's how CPI trained. And then my understanding, I don't know this for factual, but my understanding is that then people got hurt, the kid got hurt, or more adults.
Staff, yeah.
And so they took out the transporting hold, so it's no longer a CPI approved. So, and you're only allowed to do the CPI holds.
Okay. Alright, so.
I think they were in yellow. So every single person in the district gets the de-escalation portion of crisis prevention, and only a select few get the hold.
Okay. So everyone gets de-escalation.
Mm-hmm.
So then these, since a select few get the crisis prevention, what are they called?
Most buildings call it the CPI team, but some people, because they don't wanna say that, they say the red team or the blue team, but essentially it's your designated CPI team.
Okay.
But I don't know that everyone titles it that.
Well, to state training personnel
Mhm.
on, that means everyone.
Right.
Okay, point two, training personnel, to me that would mean everyone, but what you're saying is it's not everyone.
It isn't.
So how do we identify who is being
I think
trained?
you can say I think it's okay to say your designated CPI team. And then in parentheses, I think in every building it's only 5 people.
Is that a minimum or a maximum?
It's a maximum, because the goal is that we're not restraining. Again, unless it's imminent danger.
So training a maximum of 5 personnel for each building?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that accurate for middle school or for secondary education as well?
I can double check, but I'm almost positive, cause
Okay.
Kelsey always talks about just the group of 5.
Okay. So we have 2 bullet points for training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll ask that question, and then if that's different for middle school or high school, I can tell you guys at the board meeting.
Okay.
If we wanna just add that one piece.
Yeah, this is a little, I'm still trying to figure out why they identified this statute. But, because there's nothing within this statute
Yeah.
that reflects within this policy. So, I'm not really sure what that's about. So what was the other? No, that's not what I want.
You were on the right doc.
Was I?
If you scroll down.
Oh, thank you.
Right there.
Okay. Okay, so that's been addressed. And the seclusion area, is that in here? If I could spell, that would be good.
It's right there, it's what you, crossed out.
Well, it's in here 22 times, 34
Oh,
times.
Wow.
Alright, let's see. If everything is.
Yeah, that's cause it's the seclusion restraint. Where does it talk specific to a seclusion room?
Okay, seclusion, involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room, okay. Okay. Oh, of course. Okay. Okay, so I think it's been,
You guys addressed it.
yeah, or, I mean, properly
Mhm.
discussed. Okay.
So which copy are you on?
I am on the draft for 3345.
Yeah, that's.
That one. That's the right one.
Okay. I guess I didn't see you in there. But that's all
Oh,
right. I don't
because
see
I'm under the
myself
clerk.
in there. Oh, okay.
Because I'm on this computer, not my own.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so is there any more input or direction on this policy, or do we think it can go to the board for review? Because what Kelsey's saying is addressed. Okay. All that was diverse schools have a sensory or break room. Okay, so that's the other thing.
Specific to 3345 P.
Right. Well, because someone drafted a P, and
Mhm.
definitely, and there's a form, which the form's fine.
Mhm.
The P is horrid, in my opinion, because it's not a policy and it's not a procedure. It's an anthem. You know, we've got. It's just definitive, like. What's that? I don't think so.
No?
Mm-mm.
Do you think it's an old one we had?
I think somebody else drafted it.
Go to the file and look at the properties of it.
Hold on a sec. Because the thing said the yellow highlighted.
On the Coeur d'Alene one.
Oh, not on our. Because, yeah, a lot of. Yeah. So you're saying go. Where am I going?
Oh, I can't
Go to
see.
the little clock up there.
That's
Over,
the
over,
world.
over,
Okay,
right
here's the
there.
clock.
I'm saying I copied it over.
Okay. So we can't see
Rosanna
who.
created it on March 30th.
Right, but that's the draft, so we would
Yeah.
have to go to the original current.
It's right there.
Right.
So
Oh, and it's a PDF, so.
Yeah, you can go over there to those three dots.
Okay.
Yep, pop properties. See what it tells you.
Yeah, it was created in 2018.
Yeah, along with the other suicide stuff that came into play.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It all
Yeah.
came together, I think.
Yeah.
If you look back at all the
Okay.
similar
So, yeah.
policies.
This is, yeah. So the Coeur d'Alene
Yeah, it didn't
district.
come from ISBA, so, they must have just made it up based upon, I don't know what.
Okay, so this talks about more about the training,
there's
the designated locations. Okay. To add that into our policy, get rid of the P, keep the form because they have to fill out the incident form, and just clean it up so it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna make the P go away because that's heavens. So if we look at this and see where it fits, because it's just, well, let's go here. Alright, so as part of the training preparation and okay. Okay, so as part of the training and preparation of each certified administrator, teacher, and in-building classified employee, the district. Okay, so this is saying as part of the training and preparation for the building team, the team includes an administrative teacher, an administrator a building administrator, certified teacher, and classified employee.
Where are you reading that?
Down here.
The trainer for the designated volunteer will include a building administrator. In some buildings there isn't a classified employee. All of them have to have an administrator, but in some building the other 4 people are certified teachers.
Okay.
And then some they could have classified, but the principals usually designate who that team is.
Okay. So this is what we already have, only we have it worded for our building, which is, so according to this, we're saying all personnel.
Everybody goes to the de-escalation.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I just want to see what ISBA has, if they even have a.
So it looks,
They don't even have a P, Ramona.
What's that?
Uh-oh.
ISBA doesn't have a P at all.
no, we
Yeah, that's
created
what I'm
it.
saying, that's, none of that is anything.
I was just wondering if there was guidance somewhere from something.
No, it came in 2018 and all the other
Yeah.
person's ideas came into the district. Has nothing to do with anything legal or needed or anything.
I said it's
It was all
Simplify.
personal
We're
preference.
simplifying.
Yeah, we're cleaning up stuff. So training to personnel as to proper situations and events relating to student seclusion, including possible preventative alternatives to seclusion and restraint, recognizing the early signs. All right. Does that type of training happen? What this is saying?
Training to personnel as to proper situation events leading to a student seclusion and intervention, including possible preventative alternatives to seclusion, restraints, and disruptions.
Does that happen for all
Mhm.
personnel
Yeah, that's part of the training
of?
of CPI. The de-escalation.
Then it only happen. Okay, so
Of the so CPI is the umbrella over all of it.
okay,
And they have a de-escalation portion and they have a restraint portion.
Okay.
Everybody gets the de-escalation portion, only a few people get the restraint portion.
Okay.
But it's all under the same. So you could designate de-escalation, CPI dash de-escalation program section. But that's all part of the de-escalation.
All staff get trained in the
Mhm.
de-escalation, and then only 5 people
Mhm.
can restrain.
And only if it's imminent danger. Mm-hmm.
so is this
Yep, all of that. I mean, the restraints are through the lens of safety, and it's to ensure nobody gets hurt. And it will tell you if you can't guarantee that, then you shouldn't restrain. It's not safe to restrain.
okay? So if we add in here, training to personnel as to possible preventative alternatives to seclusion and restraint.
Mm-hmm. Do you wanna say de-escalation training to personnel as to, into possible preventative alternatives to seclusion and restraint, such as recognizing early signs, physical, safe physical, so I would strike through safe physical escort, they're not allowed to do that. It's all about calming the students down, intervening early.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out and I can't.
It's not worded great.
No,
Do you wanna just start from scratch?
sure. We can do that.
I mean, if you don't like that paragraph, it's kind of not worded well.
I think we should do this. So the bottom line is 5 maximum people have CPI, are trained a maximum of 5 people for each building in crisis.
Would it be?
Never mind.
Could you just start with a maximum
Yeah.
of 5 personnel for each
Right.
building? And then do what you were doing with training? If you wanted to be crystal clear, you could put de-escalation and restraint. Like if you want to, I mean, you're saying full and complete and that is the whole program.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then training personnel on de-escalation of student crisis situations, positive behavioral intervention techniques and support. Training, which this can all be erased because this isn't ours to begin with, but training personnel.
Don't you feel like you're kind of saying the same thing in 2 and?
I don't know. I just know that when we read through this,
Yeah.
The perspective was this seemed a little bit more
In depth.
a lot clearer, meatier. I mean, I'm not really sure what the right word is. And I agreed that, yeah, this is more than just 2 little bullet points that says we're gonna train people.
I mean, I think you could probably merge those 2 where you say training personnel on de-escalation of student crisis situation, positive behavioral intervention techniques and supports, early signs that students may be headed to a crisis, verbal de-escalation strategies. I mean, you could just merge that whole thing together. The only thing in there that you have to take out is the transport, the safe physical escort. We don't do that.
Is it part of CPI?
No, it used to be, it no longer is.
Okay.
Too many people got hurt, so it's not a strategy anymore.
Okay.
It's not a restraint technique they use.
So, positive behavioral techniques, supports. Early signs that an individual may be headed for a crisis and intervening early, verbal de-escalation of student crisis situations, and positive behavioral intervention techniques and supports. Okay, so that's duplicative. Okay, so, alright. And crisis development behavioral levels and the appropriate response to take to each.
That's part of CPI. They have an escalation continuum and they give you strategies for, when it's this heightened, these are some talking points but that's all part of CPI. It's all part of the de-escalation, so
Okay, so all personnel will have this. Okay.
Yep.
Good to know. Crisis development, behavioral levels. and the appropriate response to take to each. Okay.
Something about five.
Safety techniques as to the limit of possibility of injury to the student, employee.
That goes with, that says number one, it goes with your number one, that's specific to restraint. And you kinda have restraint as your number one with your group of five and everything else follows your all. Cause not everybody gets taught training safety techniques.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we train everybody though,
On the
right?
de-escalation part, yep.
Cause this says all staff must be trained, I just lost it. Gosh darn it, on both of those techniques, restraint and seclusion training.
No, we don't. We only do a designated five at each building.
That document I linked in from the State Department of Education, that goes step by step by step, everything that must be done as a requirement, go all the way to the bottom. Yep, that one right there. And if you look under, scroll down through professional development, it literally lists everything. That's where we got all the definitions, right here, yep.
All
It tells you who has to be trained, you know, it says no, clerks and stuff don't, but if you scroll down, there's
So this says annual training, positive de-escalation, and then annual training, specialized staff is where the functional behavior crisis, the correct use of restraint.
right, but if you look through the FAQs, the questions are asked who has to have it and who doesn't. And do you have to keep copies of it or whatever? It says, cause it was in the question. So parapros, anybody in a classroom who demonstrates,
All
with
the
students who demonstrate aggressive or dangerous behaviors must be trained. That's what they're calling specialized staff, but where did that one go? I just saw it was about a grant. That's what they're calling it. Restraint and seclusion training. Somewhere I just read it says everybody.
Will there be financial support for providing this training?
Yeah.
Will provide an opportunity for many grants to help support the costs
Right,
of
because
restraint and seclusion training. Okay, but within these FAQs,
yeah, it tells who.
but it says, does the all training staff requirement include PE, music, art, and other specials or
Yeah,
electives?
so
Yes,
yes.
it does. But then up here, it says, should general education teachers be considered specialized staff for the purpose of this training requirement? And it says possibly, which to me leads to the fact that they're not inclusive of everyone.
Right, it says all general ed teachers must participate in the all staff training. So basically what they're saying is if you go back and read it, unless you're a secretary or a clerk, if you have any access to a child who may or may not exhibit these signs, and it didn't even matter, somewhere under the parapro thing it said doesn't matter if you're a parapro or not, you should have this training. My only question in this is, I mean, obviously we wanna do it based upon what the state requires to do, and the Board of Education is supposed to give us, according to the statute, their own statute, policies, what do you call, I can't think, sample policies, that's not the word I want, but anyways, just to make sure that we're training everybody that needs to be trained and that they're trained properly.
The guidance that we have received from the State Department in person and every training we've gone to, even the one that Kelsey and I do, has said that you have the specialized for the restraint pieces. Everyone else has to do all the de-escalation pieces,
Mhm.
but the restraint piece comes just with the specialized, because that's where districts, like it's way easier to do when everyone's trained and everyone feels like they can
Right,
do it. And
right.
so we have really protected that you are not, within the scope of your job allowed to do that with the kid unless you've been trained, and it has to be imminent
Yep.
danger, and we control who
Yep.
who
Who
gets
makes
to do
that
that.
decision.
Mhm.
So what this is saying within the professional development is that all staff have to have annual training in positive behavior support, de-escalation techniques, and classroom behavior management, period. And then when we drop down to specialized staff without an understanding of how many that needs to be,
Right.
it states they need to have, in addition to the all staff, crisis management, de-escalation technique, correct use of restraint and seclusion, functional behavior assessment, behavior intervention plans, and crisis plans.
Right.
Okay, so what we're doing within our policy here, so the safety techniques, what if we do this training shall include where was it? Here I am. No, here we are.
It's actually a nice little layout of how
It
it's
is.
done. You want me to see if I can transfer it to Google and then just copy and paste it as is?
No, because I like to reinvent the wheel. That's my job. For those listening out there, that was sarcasm.
Let's see if I can convert it.
Yeah, the STE said they had a sample policy too. I mean, we've already gotten through it, but has to include quite a bit. Wish there was probably a procedure piece, or we're just sticking it all in one.
Well, if there is a procedural one, then
Says we have to have it. Says we have to have reporting requirements documenting each incident of
Mhm.
restraint or seclusion, so we have to write the requirement for reporting. It says reporting requirements for informing parents and administrators of each incident of restraint or seclusion. So how is that, when does it happen, what does it look like? We don't have that.
That's on the form.
Requirement for periodic review of instances of restraint or seclusion and practices related to restraint and seclusion by the Board of Trustees and Director of Public Charters. Well, we don't, I mean, when do we, I've never in 4 years
Right.
ever seen anything, have you?
oh no.
Yeah.
It's on a need to know basis.
Yeah.
We never need to know.
I think
Well, and the thing is that the board is, once again, that would be a you're in the weeds thing, but it's very evident by the State Department of Education that the board is responsible for those things, and the board has nothing. The board's never seen anything to fit all those, so in doing this, we need to make sure all those things are covered too. And that it has to be applicable for disabled and non-disabled students. And I guess we just state that.
The
I mean-
form encompasses all the stuff, and I don't know if it's in this one or the procedure, but it did talk about, like, I think it's in the policy, what you said has to be, how that has to be communicated to parents, and the timely
Mhm.
portion of that, so we do have a lot of those pieces. I will tell
Okay.
you, I do keep a folder of all the restraints and the seclusions that get sent to me for each building, so I do have that. I don't have it from previous years, because it didn't all come to me, but
Right.
I do have that.
And, just out of curiosity, why were you the end point for all that?
I'm not the endpoint,
Oh.
I just wanted to keep track of it.
Well, I didn't know if they, you know, if it said, you know, goes to this person, that person, and
No,
then
I think it actually
person,
says goes to the superintendent, so if it happens, our practice now is if it happens, it gets sent to Kelsey, myself, and Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
I just have been housing it in a folder. I do the
Yeah.
same thing if we have threat assessment. So, I mean, and they may do the same. I just, for me, when I meet with building principals, I just wanna see like if, let's just say we have a situation where it's happening. I just want, if there's a trend, I wanna be able to have a conversation, and if it's just I send it and I don't, I can't look at the,
Right.
I can't analyze it.
Right.
So for me, I just started a folder for every building, the same with threat assessment, so, if I have ongoing behavior plans, I save all that, just cause I wanna be able to look at it and reference it back and check in.
Yeah.
So this is just something I did, it's not, nobody designated me to do it, I just did.
I just didn't know if there was like a procedure that said, you know, here's.
I think the procedure says superintendent.
You know, and then here's the gatekeeper of all things for however long. That's the other thing, it's like, is there no statutory requirement of how long this stuff has to be, kept? I mean, what is the, my brain doesn't work. What is the, what do you call it when something runs out and you can't do anything?
Statute of limitations.
Limitations, yeah. What is the statute of limitations on something like that? I mean, can a parent come back in a year and say, oh yeah, by the way, you know, when you restrained my child, this and that happened and now I'm gonna sue you and we don't have the paperwork.
Yeah, I don't know what the, if there is, if that's ever even
Yeah,
been.
see, that's something the board should have documented too, because, I mean, I don't know either, you know, and people coming after us won't know either, you know,
Right.
unless they have some knowledge of something. So that should definitely be something that's in the procedure too, is, you know, what is the chain of command, who does it end with, and who's the keeper of these things and for how long, you know, whether it's digital or paper or whatever.
Okay, so their thing on the state site was positive behavior support, de-escalation techniques, classroom behavior management. So if we change it, training all personnel on de-escalation of student crisis situations in the following: recognizing the early signs that an individual may be headed for a crisis and intervening early, verbal de-escalation of student crisis situations, and positive behavioral intervention techniques and supports. And let's just add here, classroom behavior management, because they do teach that. Does that fit the bill for everyone here? Otherwise, we can just list these three, but I think this is more in-depth of information.
When are we supposed to have this done?
When we get it done.
Okay, cause the other thing I'm thinking, if I'm just thinking from a parent's perspective, if I go to the district website, most of this stuff is gonna live in the acronym world, and if I search for PBIS or whatever, I will never find it, because it's completely spelled out, so we need like a legend that says, you know, or maybe after we use the phrase, use the actual acronym for the thing. And whoever knows all those acronyms, I just noticed the one.
Which one?
What are you talking about?
The positive behavioral intervention techniques and supports, because I think most of our documentation, everything's, you know, all acronyms. So if you're searching for it on the website, you won't find it in the policy.
So they have positive behavior supports, de-escalation techniques, classroom behavior management. This was language from Coeur d'Alene's policy, except for the Coeur d'Alene for this part. Do we want to utilize that, or, and I do think, this needs to be there.
Yeah.
And then documentation of training will be placed in employee personnel file.
I have a question. After people are trained like in this, you know, these that are really important kind of things, do they sign off on it and then we keep a copy of it somewhere?
They do have to sign off, and then there is a list, and then they get a little kind of ID card that says it's good for 2 years, and then they have to renew it every 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
The
we,
company, I mean, it's pretty, like, it's a
Legit.
national, yeah, they
Yeah.
require. And you have to be there for the whole entire training. I mean, you have to pass it. There's a test at the end, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so is this adequate or enough or not enough?
I mean, the state's
Or are you
dictating that, so definitions, we got all that. I mean, I don't know that we stated it's applicable to disabled and non-disabled students. Guidelines for use and prohibition for use of restraint and seclusion. Do we have that?
Which, where are you?
So if you go, to, the board policy right there.
Oh, okay.
So that 1 through 6 is what the board has to have in its policies, procedures, whatever. These are the things we have to cover.
Okay, so we started this
Yep.
policy off with definitions.
Yep.
Okay, and then we led into,
Conduct of the employee. I think that's important.
so no, I don't think we call out that this policy is applicable to all students. So I thought maybe it goes right here. This without the underline. What did I say?
Disabled and non-disabled students. And that's from this year, so the language is current.
I know, you never know, huh?
Everything changes so fast, it's like, yesterday we said this, and today we do not say that.
100%.
Okay. Okay, so this policy is applicable to all students, disabled and non-disabled students. Or do we just say this policy is applicable to all disabled and non-disabled students?
That's what it says, applies to disabled and non-disabled.
There we go. Bottom line. Okay, there we go. Maybe
Now
we
we
should
got
hold it.
definitions.
And we have definitions for corporal punishment, physical escort, even though we don't do that, restraint, physical restraint, mechanical restraint, chemical restraint, seclusion, and imminent danger. Do they give a definition for imminent danger?
They just, I think it's in the statute or somewhere, cause didn't we
Yeah,
pull those out of
we
there?
did, yeah. Okay.
It just says we have to define physical, mechanical, chemical, and seclusion.
Right.
Okay. And then it says we have to have guidelines for use and prohibitions for use of restraint and seclusion. So,
We have the conduct of employees directed toward students. Why does that look weird? It is the duty of a teacher to carry out the rules and regulations of the Board of Trustees in managing classroom behavior, and a teacher shall have the power to adopt any reasonable rule or regulation to manage classroom behavior in and otherwise govern the classroom, not inconsistent with any statute or rule or regulation of the Board of Trustees. Corporal punishment as defined in this policy shall not be used by any district employee on any student at any time. Maybe that all needs to be capitalized. Restraint and seclusion shall not be used as forms of discipline or methods of classroom governance. Chemical restraint shall not be used for any purpose. Physical restraint, mechanical restraint, or seclusion may be used in circumstances where a student's conduct has placed him or herself, other students, district employees, or any other individual in imminent danger of serious bodily harm.
Will you go up and tell me what we said for mechanical, definition wise?
It's a parter. Means the use of any device or equipment to restrict a student's freedom of movement. This does not include devices implemented by trained school personnel or utilized by a student that have been prescribed by an appropriate medical related services professional and are used for the specific and approved purposes for which such devices were designed, such as adaptive devices or mechanical supports, vehicle safety restraints, seatbelts,
That's why.
restraints, orthopedic. So that's what. Is there a question about what?
Well, it says, there's a caveat to when you would use mechanical.
Mhm.
Well, we never do, but I guess if you're saying vehicle, we have, like, we're on a bus and I have a kid that gets escalated, they are restrained, so it would be technically, the seatbelt would be considered, that's why that.
Okay.
Cause I was gonna say, I think you need to strike through mechanical, but when number 2 is why it's a seatbelt.
Right.
And some of our little guys have harnesses,
Okay.
just, because they need to be able to stay secure in the, not because of behavior, because of,
Okay. So does this paragraph
Yeah.
meet what it is that you were?
Well, would it tell me what the guideline is for use and prohibition of use of restraints and seclusion?
Well, restraints and seclusion shall not be used as forms of discipline or methods of classroom governance. Chemical restraints shall not be used for any purpose. Physical restraint, mechanical restraint, or seclusion may be used in circumstances where a student's conduct has placed him or herself, other students, employees, yada yada yada, in imminent danger of serious bodily harm. So, in my opinion, it does meet the tenets of what's asked, but is it enough?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking a question,
I don't know, because we know I'm visual, so I can't see that very
Yeah.
well, and
I think
You were my guiding
lower,
eyes.
you
Yeah.
add more detail, cause it talks about imminent danger.
well, here we have seclusion or restraint of a student shall immediately be terminated when it is determined the student is no longer an immediate danger to him or herself, or to any other individual, period.
And the point of that is, the whole point of restraining is, it's imminent danger, so you're trying to circumvent the emergency. The moment it's no longer an emergency, you don't get to restrain to control. That's what
Right.
that's about. It's about being able to just get through whatever the emergency is. So, like, I have a kindergartner who is cognitively impaired, and so has the mindset of a second grader, and I see my mom in the parking lot and I'm standing by the door and I try to run out. I'm gonna grab him, right, to protect him, but the moment he's safe, I don't get to hold him until mom gets there.
Right.
I have to be able, you know what I mean? And
Right.
It's the only example that came to mind, but you know what I mean, that's when
Right.
it's not I don't get to use it as a form of control.
Okay, but we drop down here in this paragraph and we're saying an immediate
Right.
danger.
Yeah.
Right.
Should it say imminent?
Well, that's
So
the
that the
language of
student-
the law, and
Correct.
that's the language in all things.
Is
imminent
no
danger.
longer in imminent danger to him or herself or to any other individual.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then imminent danger is defined above.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, then we go, if a situation occurs where a student's conduct has placed him or herself, employee, or any other individual in imminent danger, and a properly trained district employee has used acts of restraint or seclusion with a student, the following occurs. So then we list out what they
Yeah.
have to do if they do it, if they need to utilize that. And then we talk about the training of school personnel. So, a
Where
max.
do we talk about notifying the parents?
At the top,
Up here in the
right there,
report.
you just passed it right there.
An employee shall immediately complete an incident and provide it to their principal, including date, time, all of that information. The building principal notifies the parent of the situation and the event. Okay, but this is only if they've had to utilize seclusion or restraint. This isn't about just de-escalating.
Right.
So does that state that even in de-escalation we need to notify the parents?
Well, it's sort of all together. I mean, they don't break it apart. Part of the training is de-escalation techniques.
Right.
It doesn't say that you only fill out a report when, this imminent danger thing happens. It doesn't say that. It says in all of these situations, what are the reporting requirements of restraint or seclusion? And the requirements for informing the parent and administrator of each incident of restraint or seclusion.
Right.
So they are
you-
saying restraint or seclusion and practices related to restraint and seclusion. Requirements of periodic review of instances of restraint or seclusion and practices related to restraint and seclusion by the Board of Trustees and Direction. Okay, so that's just us reviewing it. So they receive the training and all of that. The only time, this is saying the only time they have to report, or the expectation of reporting, is whenever there's seclusion or
Restraint.
restraint. Yeah.
Which the incidences that you were made aware of was in fact that restraint was used. Or seclusion was used, not
Well, they would
restraint.
put in, what did she call them? Well, reading this, I could very much argue that they weren't secluded, even though that's what happened. But I could argue based on this, they weren't secluded, and it wasn't a restraint. Because what did she say here? But yeah, you're correct. Whatever she called those, the sensory or break rooms. I mean, that's the other thing, is that parents aren't made aware of those instances.
Well, they should be.
Mhm.
Anytime their child is hauled out of the classroom for whatever reason, the parents need to be notified. So then,
And we say, it's been said, oh, well, we do that, but it's not written anywhere.
but it's not in the policy.
Right.
That's crystal clear that says
Right.
if you need to alter that child's learning environment for any period of time, because that's the best way I can describe it, you need to let the parents know.
But that's the definition of seclusion. So that's part of the conversation of if it's out of the kids. I mean, it's one thing if I'm I'm a 10-year-old and I'm struggling and I had a not great recess or whatever, I lost a tetherball and I want to go into the break room, that's different. He's
Right.
choosing to do that.
Right.
But if I, as a teacher, am forcing you to go,
Except
it's involuntary.
Seclusion states does not include a timeout. That is a behavior management technique that is part of an approved program. So if on little Johnny's IEP, it says if he escalates, then you put him in the blue room. Well, why is the parent not being notified that he got escalated and we had to implement I get it, it's part of the plan,
Yeah.
but the communication to the parent still needs to be there. We can't just be like, nope, it's part of the plan, I don't need to let you know.
I guess for me, I take that differently because I feel like if you have it built in the timeout room of like, I'm gonna take a break and the child, again, it's voluntary because right above that it says means the involuntary confinement of a
Right.
student alone in a room or an area for which the student is physically prevented from leaving the room. So if I, as the adult, am blocking you from leaving,
Mhm.
I am now secluding you. I think parents should always be notified. I
Well,
think if you write it in a
wholeheartedly agree.
plan that they can take a break, that's different. But I think the moment that crosses over where I'm forcing the issue, I think you're secluding and then the policy goes into play, even if you have it documented in a plan.
Okay, but I'm just gonna play devil's advocate,
Right.
so to speak. So little Johnny is getting escalated and he's a little squirrely and it's like, no, buddy, you need a break and a timeout. So
Mhm.
we're gonna pop your little buns over here to the blue room.
Mm-hmm.
So Johnny goes into the blue room and the door's closed because, we don't want the whole world hearing little Johnny have his meltdown. Okay, because it says in his IEP, if he gets escalated, he can go into the timeout room. we have involuntarily confined him because it's part of his behavior management
Right.
program, and the parent's not notified.
You're right, I'm sure that hasn't happened, but technically they should have been. Under
Right.
this, I
No,
think they should have been, so I think that's what we have to say, like, you can write that in a plan, and it's fine for Johnny to say, hey, I wanna go, but the moment it's a forced thing, I think it falls into the seclusionary definition, and then we should be telling parents.
but how is it not a forced thing when the caveat is if he's escalated, he needs to be removed to the blue room and parents are okay with that?
You are, you should be telling parents,
Right.
Is this blue room for only kids with IEPs?
not necessarily.
No, it's just for kids that need
And I
a
would want to
break.
be notified
Right.
either way, even if my kid voluntarily chose to go in there.
Right.
I would want to know
Right.
because why,
Mm-hmm.
How did we get to that point?
yes.
Yeah.
But and again,
Exactly.
I think it goes back to your parental right, and we have legislation that
I
says if
would
you
not
see a
want
change
my
in a
kid
kid or
alone anywhere, especially with
Mhm.
adults.
Right.
Right.
And the other thing, when we never say either, is how long, when is enough enough? I mean, do we leave these kids in there for an hour, 20 minutes, 2 hours? I mean,
Well, the idea would be until they're de-escalated, but to your point, I'm not sure that always happens.
well, the majority of the time, I mean, as a human, child or adult, if somebody forcibly, in your brain, forcibly locks you in a room, how long is it gonna take you to calm down?
Right.
You're not gonna calm down till
Which
you
is
get
why
out.
there's a push not to, I mean, it's the same thing with
Right.
restraining. That's why people get hurt, because, I mean, you have just a situation that would have been a 2, the moment I put my hands on you, it's now a 10. It's an automatic 10 versus,
Right.
you know, that's why the law says imminent danger, because the moment you restrain or seclude, you are escalating the situation tenfold.
Right.
And every adult that I've ever seen hurt is through this lens, like, it's a matter of control.
Yeah.
And now now there are situations, but I do think that even if the parents okay it in an IEP, to your point, Michelle, we should be, it's a seclusion.
Mhm.
It's one thing if a child is like, I wanna go take a break and, play in the room and have a snack or whatever, and I had a rough morning, like, that's different. I think you should still be telling parents, but I think, he can come and go anytime he wants.
Right.
But the moment I'm shutting that door and I'm saying, under my control, I'm letting you leave, it now is a seclusion situation. Regardless of everybody's okayed it or not.
In Coeur d'Alene, they have some sort of training, it's trust-based relationship.
TBI.
Yeah, have you guys thought
We
about
have.
that here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is to your point, Ramona, we need to get better about this.
Well, yeah, and this, the whole, I mean, I don't know how you change the perception that, I'm educated in it and you're not. Especially when it comes to them telling that to people who are with the child all day long, year after year.
Mm-hmm.
They better, and then that was the other thing I brought up to Lisa, it's like, why are paras not in IEP meetings?
Well,
You know?
legally, they're supposed to be. You can't have a IEP meeting without a parent.
Oh, well, a parapro,
Oh,
the parent,
yeah.
whoever's with the child, I
Right.
mean, they're with them.
You're talking about the
right?
one-on-one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or whatever happens,
Mhm.
and for them not to be involved in the meeting, to me, I thought was just, okay. I mean, I didn't
I
realize
actually
that
agree
didn't
with
happen.
you. I
Yeah.
try to have them there, especially, the one thing if it's just an instructional para and, they see 3 different ones, but if you truly have a one-on-one, yeah, I agree, they should be present.
I think any adult spending any time with a child, especially a child that we know has certain behaviors or has some kind of modification we've done with them, anytime, because we don't know if that child has warmed up to her better than me
For
or
sure.
you, or
Mhm.
even, Miss Smith might only spend 30 minutes with the kid a day, but the kid,
Loves.
tells her
Right.
everything, So if we're really doing it for the best interest of the kids, all those that have, you know, touched the child for any amount of time should be involved in
Yeah.
making it the best environment. And for us not to do that, I don't understand why we don't. We need to change that. And I think, you know, we can change part of it here, but for people to understand that we're only doing it to make it better for the kids.
Right.
You know, we can't, we're trying to teach these children and educate them, but the last thing they wanna do is come back to school knowing that they've had to go hang out in the room when they didn't wanna, you know, they don't wanna
Right.
come to school then it's like
Right.
major anxiety and stress and everything else just in there already are dealing with enough, you know? We just want them to come to school and be happy to be in the environment, then they'll learn something. You know, but if every time they come through the door, there's all these adults that are intimidating to them, they don't wanna be there. And they do escalate, you know, and things do get worse than they need to be. And that was, you know, I'm sure the only reason that it came to me, but now parents are so frustrated, they're calling the county commissioners. They don't wanna talk to us or Lisa or you. They want the commissioners to do something about it. I'm like,
I mean, I think this is a hot topic across the nation, cause
Yeah.
the opposed of that is you have kids who are
Well,
escalating constantly,
right.
and then you're having to evacuate rooms, and for some of them it is, but some of them, there's a
Yeah.
different reason, there's lots
Right,
of reasons, and
right.
some of them, it's not the environment, so that's the hard part, and so then people are like, we're trying stuff and it's not working. So, I mean, there's no one size fits all, and this is not an
Right.
easy answer, for
But
sure.
I think if we also have a documented paper trail
Mhm.
of every
Yeah.
single incident that has
Right.
caused a disruption, not only to that child, but to the entire class of
Right.
25 or 30 kiddos.
or even the whole school, I'm thinking about when we talked about, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was
Okay.
thinking, remember we had the conversation about the principal that had to, you know, put her duties on hold because she had to help
Yeah.
control
The school.
the whole school
Right.
was
Well, and
her.
if that's your
You know.
entire day, for sure.
Yeah, there's.
Which is why I just felt like, you know, I'm trying to keep track of all that stuff,
Yeah.
so I can just,
No,
okay, what are
absolutely.
we supposed to be doing,
Right,
or the things that
right.
we need, cause, I mean, yes, it gets addressed if it's an IEP, but what if it's not an IEP?
Right.
So then what are we doing, and just so I can better support our kids and our teachers and our,
Right.
everyone.
And
parents,
especially, yeah,
everyone.
the teachers too, I mean,
You
I
know, so
imagine.
it's just not an easy, but
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate, and coming from a special ed world and having restraint and hurt my knee and been in situations that I felt were super uncomfortable, but I was directed to do it.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, both of these are, you escalate the situation times 10,
Yeah.
and it lasts a whole lot longer instead of, but, you know, the argument is, what am I supposed to do this, you know, like, we had a situation, one year where there was some separation anxiety from the parent, a non-special ed kid, and, I mean, it was screaming, hitting, punching mom, and, you know, mom's in tears, I'm trying to support, and mom's like, can you please just grab her, and I can't grab your kid,
right,
screaming down the hallway, running, you know, I mean, for months.
yeah.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the trauma for the child
Everybody,
on top
yeah.
of the trauma
and
for
the
everyone in the
parent,
building.
because, like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, but it's like, she was struggling, she didn't want
Right.
to leave mom, and so, but I'm, you know, I'm like, I'm not gonna put my hands on her, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying all the strategies, and eventually we'd get her, and, you know, but it
Mhm.
definitely took some time, and it happened for months, for days, you know, like, just, but it's not an overnight thing, and so, I mean, luckily, you know, we got into a situation where we funneled where she went with mom before we dropped off, so that everybody else wasn't impacted, because I was worried, like, your peers are gonna hear this, and, you know,
Right,
I don't want
right.
I don't want other parents to see this, and, you know, whatever, but.
Or other kids taking notes, oh, look at that one
Right,
for her.
well, I was more worried about.
I have to try that
You're gonna have
someday.
other
Yeah.
moms see this, and then
Right.
now directing their kid not to play with yours, like, she's a great kid,
Right.
she just is
Yeah.
having a struggle separating from her mom, so we have really difficult, and then some of that, and it's, you know, there's not a lot, it's not easy, and so we do have disruptions that happen, and we're trying, it's not an overnight, and I mean, but I think that's everywhere right now.
Yeah, Definitely, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So if we just change seclusion to state, this includes the use of a timeout as a behavior management technique that is part of an approved program, involves a monitored separation of the student in an unlocked setting and is implemented for the purpose of calming.
it's still a seclusion.
That's what I'm saying,
Mhm.
that we're saying seclusion is still this.
There's no
loophole
exclusion
to
of
get out of
seclusion.
what we're gonna call
Yeah.
this
Well, the
seclusion.
notification piece, right?
Yeah, because if that happens, then they just have to fill out an incident report and they let the parent know.
Because for me, I want to be able to like, okay, this has happened with the same kid 5 times.
Right.
What is the antecedent? What's happening? Like,
Mhm.
okay, is it a certain subject that we're struggling with? Is it
Right.
I don't want to eat and it's now lunchtime? The whole atmosphere going in the cafeteria is
Right.
over.
Right.
Like, if you can't look at trends, you're never gonna get to the crux of the problem if that kid can't articulate their
Right.
like whatever the struggle is.
Well, and the teacher too, or whoever it
Right.
may be, you know,
Right.
they're probably like, you know,
Frustrated.
For
how are
sure.
they gonna be protected if it's not all documented? So they can say, no, I did do this, I did,
Right.
you know. So it's just good for everybody
Yeah.
to,
Okay, so we're just changing the does not to
Yeah.
includes.
yeah.
Okay,
That was long-winded to do that one part, sorry.
Yeah.
it's okay. So, do you feel now that this meets the criteria?
Well,
of-
there's still no time constraint. So when this restraint is being used, how long is too long? And the reason I think we have to put a time on it is because some people interpret behaviors totally different. Some people think that the majority of these students do it because they don't have any discipline. You know, some people think, you know, oh, well, that's just them, they're just, you know, they always do this. Or I think there has to be at a point to where somebody,
I feel like that sentence addresses it. Seclusion or restraint of a student shall immediately be terminated when it is determined the student is no longer in imminent danger. And then I think the time, a seclusion, like you're supposed to in the form document how long the removal was, if there was a removal situation.
right, but in this instance, the child just became more uncontrollably crying,
Mm-hmm.
and it went on and on and on and on and on. So there wasn't, there
was-
was no way that that child was gonna de-escalate, because
Right.
the position they were put in was what was causing
The
them to
escalation,
escalate,
right.
you know? So how long do we wait before somebody says, well, you know, we should at least call the parent, you know, or, and I don't know what we do, but I know in other schools, you know, where they have called the parent, the kid talks to their mom or dad like 5 minutes and they're fine, they're back on their way and.
I'd call the parents and just say this is the situation and,
Right,
you know. Just remains in seclusion.
So how long is,
yeah, I
Sufficient.
don't know, I think, you know, there again, I think the age thing too, but I would think that, you know, if they're in this, I mean, how long does it take them to calm down, 30 minutes,
So
45
there's
minutes?
no minimum and there's no maximum.
Not really.
Yeah,
So I don't think you can put a time, it varies.
But I think
By
you could
child.
put a caveat, and I think what Ramona is saying is you could put a caveat of when would you notify a parent to help de-escalate the situation. I guess the only thing I would change there, Michelle, is I don't see that this would be applicable to a restraint, because the restraint is specific, like you drop at the moment, it's no longer imminent. So the kid could still be escalated,
okay, but
but for seclusion, for sure.
hearing what you're saying, seclusion, I mean, the kid goes in the room and he immediately stops crying. Do you just open the door and let the little guy back out?
No,
I don't
mean,
know too many people that do that.
Part of the training is that you have to go through that de-escalation, they have to, like, I always they'd have to do something that I've said, like, you know, let's go wash your hands, like, there's some level of compliance, so I know that you really are calm and ready to go back to class, you can answer a couple of questions for me, that kind of a thing.
Okay, but if you're on a school bus and the child's restrained in his little car seat,
Yeah.
but he calms down and he's no longer being a poop, do you unbuckle him or do you wait till you get to your destination?
Yeah,
he's in
well, in
restraint.
that situation, but this is specific to an adult restraint. I mean, I'm reading this through the lens of an adult restraint where I can let it go the moment. Because the law is pretty specific about imminent danger and you need to be able to no longer hold that child.
Right, but it's a mechanical restraint that we have.
You're right.
So, yeah, cause I mean, I'm sure physical restraint, you know, I don't know if the SRO is gonna bear hold a kid for 30 minutes. I highly doubt it, but you know, you never know.
Let's hope not.
I'm just saying, we can
Yeah.
always think of all these
Yeah,
bizarre
you're right.
situations that hopefully will never ever occur, but you never know.
Or maybe it just needs to be, in those steps, this procedure that they're telling us we need to have too, is that, you know, maybe there needs to be a reevaluation, you know, okay, we've been in here for 30 minutes, what does the situation look like? Is it getting better, is it getting worse, you know what I'm saying, maybe that's what needs to happen, there needs to be an intercession of evaluate the situation after 30 minutes, no, it doesn't look good, give it another 15, now we're at 45 minutes, if it's almost an hour, more than likely the kid's never gonna come down.
No, well, I'm sorry.
Unless they're just wiped
If
out
after
and passed
30
out.
minutes, my kid is still,
Screaming,
yes, and
Crying
someone decides,
uncontrollably.
let's go on another 15 minutes and they haven't called me, I would be livid. Because that's
Yeah.
my child. And
well,
something
that's
has
what I'm
sent
trying
them
to
off the
figure out
edge.
is, you know,
I mean,
I think 30 minutes
what's that?
I think you're right.
Because, I mean, as a parent, if you let me know my kid's wild and isn't calming down, it's been 30 minutes, and I'm so busy that I can't deal with it, I'm gonna tell you. But I would stop what I was doing and go take care of the situation, but maybe not every parent can do that. That's understandable. But if they don't know their child is in that predicament, they can't weigh in on the situation one way or the other.
And sometimes it's they can talk to their child. We definitely have parents who will refuse.
Yeah.
Those are rare. But you know, it happens.
Right.
But I mean, I think there should, at some point, I'd wanna know.
suggestions, I mean, like when,
My kid, one of my sons, my old school, they called me and said, your kid threw a chair, instead of, they were like, you know, they know me, they called me, instead of writing him a referral and kicking him out, they were like, called me to let me know, I was said, alright, I'll be there, brought him to the parking lot and spanked him, took him back in there to apologize, and they knew that's what was gonna happen, and let him back in class, and he was fine. So they were like, Mom, you need to handle this, and it was fine. So I think calling the parent, yeah.
I've had situations where I feel like, this is a parent thing, I'm gonna call you, and I mean, and oftentimes I would say, this is the situation,
So
and let's work together.
In your experience, I don't know, I couldn't sit there with the kid freaking out for 30 minutes. That's a long time.
yeah.
So, but I don't know, yeah, you guys must be trained really well to be put up with.
I mean, I think there has to, the reason, some of it is you're trying to calm, like, you know, you're giving the kid, and sometimes you can overload verbally, and so you're taking
Yeah.
a step back and you're like, are you hungry? Can you, cause sometimes
That's
kids
what I
don't
mean, that's
tell
a
you, like
long
you,
time,
they can
so-
literally get off the bus and then they're at recess and then they're crying, and it's like, no, you don't know what's going on, you just know this kid is escalated, and it's not in a physical, I need to restrain you, you're struggling, so I'm gonna bring you in and try to help you, and you know, you can call the parent, they have no idea, and so you're trying, so can I get you some food? And so sometimes it's like just getting it out of their head, and then they'll start, you know, so sometimes it does take a little bit of time, and then, you know, they drop their lunch, or, I mean, sometimes it's super innocent, and you're like, well, we can get you food, we can get whatever, and then they need to go to the bathroom, and, you know, and then they can go back, but that process could have been 30 minutes. Well, I wouldn't have called the parent in that, I would have called them directly after and said, hey, so-and-so got off the bus, sounds like he left his lunch, blah, 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 this is what we did,
Yep.
whatever. So it's hard to just, but there are scenarios where I called the parents in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
You know,
so
like,
that's what I'm, okay, yeah.
yeah. Cause I'm like, this is not going well, you know, they're sobbing and running from me, and now I'm fearful, you know,
Yeah.
so.
So if a student remains in seclusion or restraint for a period of 15 minutes, then a phone call shall be placed to the parent. I don't know. Thoughts? Or board discussion. I mean, we
Yeah,
can
the
just give
board
it to the
can, yeah.
board and be like, do your job, figure it out.
Do you wanna put parent or guardian?
No, just the parent. Okay, so that's a highlight, so we'll need to remember to point that out. Alright, Ken, we good on this one, or was there more?
Oh, I think that's probably fine for now.
Okay, alright. So can this go to the board? There was no input, I mean, there was one comment
Really?
a million
Only one?
moons ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was survey feedback.
Surveys.
It was when we only got 4 comments on total.
Oh, yes, yes.
Remember
okay,
this
I
one?
remember.
Yeah, looks fine.
Yeah.
And then, that one. So, can we send this one to the board
Yeah.
for guidance? Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with that. Does anybody else have any input on it?
No, okay.
Just for clarity, are we sending the form as well, just not the procedure, right?
We're
So-
gonna send the form and the procedure with the understanding that the board will direct
Okay,
whether or not they're gonna keep it or get rid of it.
so the policy, the procedure, and the form.
Correct.
Okay.
So, on the, where's the draft of the,
It's underneath,
you're right,
or up, actually.
so you know what to send to the board. Do.
I wonder where that came from.
It's no longer, here, so. Yeah, that way when you pull it up, it'll be lined out and it will alert me to the fact that I need to give, hello, input on that. Okay, so, are we good with moving on?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. I mean, everybody else, okay.
Yeah.
So the suicide policy, so it looks like the policy committee is merging the suicide safer model policy by the Department of Ed with our current policy. I support this and recommended it several years ago. However, I do feel our current prevention protocol is the weakest area of our protocols. Studies recommend enhancing emotional resilience and having ongoing school-wide activities to promote school community. It is also recommended to have gatekeeper training and notification protocols. Although we do have gatekeeper training and notification protocols, our resiliency efforts have been hampered with the removal of our suicide prevention curriculum and the ongoing discomfort of programming that addresses emotional resilience. Heather Hamilton is the coordinator of the prevention team. Lisa is the coordinator of our crisis team. Lisa is the spokesperson for the district. The protocol is part of the annual approval of the crisis response handbook. There were no changes this past year. This policy speaks to intervention through instruction using an age-appropriate curriculum, which I don't think we currently have. This would be something we need to look at. Did Lisa write all of this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Yes, she did.
She wrote this part?
No, that was Heather Hamilton,
Okay.
and the bottom one is Lisa.
Okay.
So can you put her name on there so we will remember who wrote what?
Yep.
Just do the little, like Lisa did, yeah, just do that so we'll know, remember who did what.
Alright, so okay, is committed to creating and maintaining school environment. Alright, the district has a responsibility to notify student's parent regarding any known changes in the student's mental, physical, or emotional behavior or well-being. However, pursuant to that, neither a teacher nor a school district shall have the duty to warn of the suicidal tendencies of a student without knowledge of direct evidence of suicidal tendencies.
Where's the without? Is that what the statute literally says?
That is what the statute says. 33-512B. Is that the right one? Oops.
No, that's not the right statute.
You're right.
It is there, the duty to warn is,
I'm just getting rid of these
you can
because
just
I'll
search
be
it.
33-512. Oh, 512B. It is it. There we go.
There you go.
Notwithstanding, okay. Neither a teacher nor a school district shall have a duty to warn of the suicidal tendencies of a student absent the teacher's knowledge of direct evidence of such suicidal tendencies. So that's verbatim from the statute. Okay, so the superintendent's done this. Post-pension shall mean counseling or other, because that came from the statute.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
I don't like C. 'Cause I think it's subjective. I don't know how we're identifying what's quote at risk and what isn't at risk.
Well, and I don't know what the support means. And or counseling. They can't be counseling students. They're not mental health providers.
Well, alright, we have to go back to what the statute and what the IDAPA rule says that we have to do and stick to that. We need to quit raking things up underneath where we have no legal authority to put them.
Okay.
That would be we keep doing that with things, especially when it comes to this and other, we wanna just rake up all kinds of stuff and we wanna make sure that we don't get way off in somewhere else. Yeah, and that's the other thing, we're not legally obligated for student intervention. The legal obligation in the statute is to train the teacher.
Right. That I
Right?
do know.
Yeah, so this
To
whole.
train them in suicide awareness or?
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay.
and that's it, so that they can report to the proper people who are trained to deal with that. It's not for the school district to step into that position and, even the rule is very explicit to step into that position and take on that role. The only thing that except for there is a standard, making them aware, but there's no, I just think sometimes we do much more than what we're, like identifying at risk. Well, what's at risk? Yeah, I know that there's, the mental health world, the medical world, they have their own protocols that identify those things, but we're education, we're not those people.
So then,
And I believe there's
alright, so
State Board of Education example, let's see.
So this blue is actually from IDAPA with the exception of this
Mhm.
down here. It doesn't state evidence-based protocol. In fact, I don't even know.
It does right there.
At the
It says
bottom under
post-
post.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Yep.
So, thank you. So that's all that it needs to say. Where, I'm wondering where,
So if you looked at the statute too,
oh, that's right, okay, so maybe 2018, okay.
yeah, it all came together.
Yeah, you're right. So,
So then the postvention, prevent, all that, along with being in the IDAPA rule is also part, if you wanna go look at the 33-136. 3A says what the school district should have. And this is directive of the State Board of Education, this is what they were gonna do, right? And this
Mhm.
is how they think it should look, and then they say, 3A, this is what the school district has to do.
so does the State Department of Education have a model policy?
They're supposed to. The state board, yeah, they're supposed to all have that, and I believe that they do.
So our policy needs to address procedures relating to suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention, which that's what's going on here. We have
Mhm.
prevention, intervention, and postvention. The blue is what ISBA has provided us with.
And that is directly out of the statute, that
Mhm.
postvention there.
Okay, so then, this, I'm curious. Okay, all the blue is new from ISBA. Offering and providing help and assistance, including early identification, that's prevention. Utilizing the direct district-approved suicide risk assessment protocol. Do we have that? Okay, and then where is it?
All the counselors have it, and I think
Okay.
it actually might be part of the crisis prevention. I'm gonna pull it up.
But shouldn't all the staff have it? Because if a teacher is,
They have access to it,
okay,
yeah.
okay, so they have access to it. Is there ever a point in time when you're doing like professional development where everyone's getting the training on it? Like what to look for, the 411 on suicide
They're supposed to
prevention?
do it at the beginning of every school year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every staff member has access to the suicide risk assessment protocol,
Mhm.
and they all have seen it.
Yep,
Okay.
they're all supposed to have seen it, so yes.
Okay, how are we tracking that they've seen it or that
So
they're
I created a list, we talked about this at the end of last year.
Okay.
Here's all the things that you're supposed to go over with your staff, and all the principals are supposed to mark off that their staff have read it, like specific.
Okay.
We talked about like our educational
Right.
policies, we talked about, so I created a spreadsheet that here's all the policies I want you to go over with your teachers, and then here's all the things that like, you know, I can't think of one off the Narcan training
Right,
like,
right,
that you're
right.
supposed to do, so here's
Okay.
a list of all things, and so
Okay.
then they're supposed to mark off that they did it with their staff.
Okay.
And then we have access to that.
Okay, so when are you following up on that?
I follow up it when my building meetings if it's not done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a check and balance in place to ensure that
It's
you know,
getting
this is what
done.
you're supposed to do, and if they're not doing it, then we're following up with them.
And then here's our crisis plan, the response plan, and so here's the prevention and intervention checklist procedures, and then off campus if it's like an after hours thing specific to suicide, and this is what Lisa was saying, it's been approved.
Okay, so that's, oh wow, okay.
It's all funneled through the crisis response plan, and so
Okay,
if you go, will you just go back to our October,
Uh-huh.
right there, and then scroll down? Yeah, far, like way down. So one of the things that we have to talk about, all of that right there, so, severe weather,
Okay, yeah,
earthquake,
yeah.
like all of that is contained in this plan, you know,
right,
death on it, like all of that's part of the crisis response plan.
alright,
We don't have policies around it
Right.
because we just have it in this plan.
but we
And
need
so-
to have the policies.
So we drafted, ISBA has policy, so all of
Okay.
that kind of goes together, like if there's an explosion, so it's not that we don't have, but I would, like, Olivia and I looked through it, what we have is more through, it's not like, it's not written through the lens of a policy.
Okay,
But they have separate, so, I mean, when we go through all of this, and probably when the suicide one fits in that, the suicide one just happens to be an annual policy we're supposed to do. We probably need to look at them side by side, cause I don't know that it's the same language, but
okay,
everything is funneled, it's been in the crisis plan, I don't know at what point, to my knowledge, we've never had those as a policy, it's always been here, but I could be wrong.
No, you are-
We do not have
no.
policies for these.
yes.
Yeah.
And, yes, I
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, but it's all here.
yes. It would be wonderful if Jessica weighed in and like it could all go away. We could shrink that. That would be amazing.
You're on it, huh? Yeah.
Okay,
she's
thank
on
you.
it.
Because I know she has nothing to do, so
She's
you know.
been a little busy with the audit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I won't worry about these until like,
The audit
November,
will be,
December.
it's done.
but then maybe I won't need to worry about them at all. Just kidding. Okay. So going back.
My wife, I don't know.
What's her name?
Yvonne?
She's in here.
Come on
Are
in.
you good?
Yeah, we're having a meeting, but you're more than welcome to join.
Oh, no, no, my son's in the car.
Oh, okay.
I'll wait for you guys. I'll wait for the car back.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Your son can come in too. He might want to weigh in. Oh. Okay, so I'm wondering where this blue language came from.
I think part of that was taken from this, Idaho, let me go back here, the State Department of Education. You know, cracks me up, they never actually develop anything focused on Idaho. They always grab some federal document and say, oh yeah, this looks good, we're gonna use that.
So the blue came from,
ISBA.
Yeah, there's this document on the State Department of Education's called Idaho's Suicide Safer Model Policy.
Okay.
And I think part of that came here because under prevention, it has prevention coordinator, professional development, youth prevention programming. And then under intervention, screen and referral, in-school suicide attempts, out-of-school suicide, parental notification and involvement, reentry, and then under postvention, it says development and implementation of action plan and external communication with, you know, tons of text in between. But I think part of it, I think it's sort of a conglomeration of this document. I was trying to find the State Board of Education's document, their model policy. But I think it's like everything else, well, part of that we know comes out of the statute and the IDAPA rule, right? Like all of that.
Well, this is all from statute.
Yeah. And I still think we need to clarify,
Or IDAPA, I should say.
because here's the other thing is I don't know where the dividing line is. The statute's very explicit on all of this for the personnel.
For staff,
Yeah, you know, and it's like a lot of this starts tracking off into students. So like, where's the line? Where's students and where's the personnel?
Where's the protocol?
Yeah, where's,
Can I ask a question?
No. Go ahead.
For how things are currently
Mhm.
at the school, cause my oldest is only in 6th grade, so I haven't gone all the way through with all this. But, so is suicide, is my understanding it's discussed in the health classes right now? Is that right?
Is that accurate?
I don't know that it's discussed. I mean, I'd have to pull up the health standards to see if that's something that,
So this would be like adding a
Yeah,
whole
there's
lot
actually-
of suicide talk into the schools, is that?
well, what
Just in this?
Rona's saying is the
Shouldn't
statute
be.
is more specific to the staff has it, but there's not, I mean, there used to be a program that we no longer do that kind of, it's a suicide prevention, and so, that
well, it was
kind
billed as, I had to correct that, it was billed as suicide prevention, it's sources of strength.
Yeah.
That's the one that they took me to the state over and went to the author of the program and all that. It's, comes off as suicide prevention, but even the Department of Justice ranks it at its very lowest ranking that it might be usable someday. There's many other, peer-reviewed,
But they're not teaching about it or doing a class on it or, yeah.
and we're not doing that program anymore.
Well, they were with the sources of strength.
Okay.
well,
So,
we don't
because
know
we
that they
hadn't-
aren't, I mean, who's verified that?
Yeah, but because it was a curriculum that was being implemented that hadn't been approved or even run by the board, and then when the board looked into it, the board was like, no. So, that's what Ms. Hamilton is alluding to in the fact that, we've, our prevention protocol is the weakest, which I don't think that is an accurate statement.
I think we need a lot of clarification and clear-cut lines of what belongs. I mean, we can take it if people are, I need for me, I'll find out for me, and I have this all written down somewhere, cause I
Okay.
went through this once. And part of it being because Lake Pend Oreille School District had a huge lawsuit a
Mhm.
few years back from a prior student's family who moved to Washington and was successful, and then they came back to Idaho, and that's where I got the majority, there's case law for it in Idaho, where the school has no duty to the extent that I perceive Lakeland's trying to put out there. And the reason they don't have that is because had they had that, then the case law, the lawsuit would have went the other way, and Lake Pend Oreille School District would have been liable, and they, along with the teacher and everybody else that was sued. But they were found not because Idaho has no duty to warn. They do not have to warn. And the child had wrote in his journal and drew pictures, of this yeah, it was,
But we are not doing that program, we haven't for, I think this is probably the 3rd year maybe.
so, under the health standards for mental, emotional, and social health, page 14 in the content standards, it does list suicide prevention, that's grades 6 through 8, so yes, I guarantee they're talking about it. It's also meeting standards, 6 through 8, number 4, interpersonal communication, so if it's under interpersonal communication and the teacher's trying to meet the standard, now mind you, I'm not an educator, but if they're trying to meet the standard, that means that they must be discussing this if it's under interpersonal communication. Because right after that is relationship violence and bullying. So, and the standard is that they have to demonstrate how to request and offer assistance to enhance the health and self and others, which means that they are having a conversation about violence, bullying, suicide prevention, and I don't know to what degree, but if they're following the standard, then I would assume the student somehow is demonstrating that they have the skill to ask You know, so I would say you probably need to ask the principal or the teacher or somebody if, you know, what does this look like in your student's class?
And is that under health?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
under, yes, that is under the health standard. And
Okay.
it's 6-8 H414.
My understanding is the focus is on advocacy, having kids have a voice through bullying, you know, like when they don't like something, they're speaking up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, who's your safe adult, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it is there 6-8, 9-12. It just says the same thing, suicide prevention with no definition of that, so, you know, until somebody defines in this district what that looks like, they can say whatever they wanna say, cause there's no definition of it, you know? That's why I think it's very,
Well, the reality is the board needs to define what suicide prevention is.
right, right, somebody needs to look at the statute, look at the IDAPA rule, look at the standard, because the statute is clearly talks about training adults,
Right.
you know, and maybe making, you know, available to students that, you know, here's resources, here's, you know, whatever the new, phone number is. I
Mm-hmm.
forget what the number is, 3-digit number now. You know, those kinds of things or whatever, but, yeah. You know, we need to, cause it isn't defined, it can be whatever people want it to be, I guess. Cause the standard doesn't define it either. You know, other than that one thing they have to, and here's the thing is that was somebody's example. So the standard actually says demonstrate how to ask and offer assistance to enhance the health of self and others, period. And then somebody said, oh, let's give an example and let's put this in there as an example.
Okay.
So it's, again, it's like a requirement or a recommendation.
Right, right, right.
You know, I just had this conversation about mask thing. It's like, no, Panhandle Health recommended. It was never a mandate, but anyways, I digress. Sorry.
But yeah, I agree. If it legally says we have to have something in there, then if it needs to say what you say they do is they have a voice, then we tell them we have a voice.
So yeah, it needs a lot of work, I think.
All right.
More than 12 minutes of work.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a touchy topic
Extremely.
anyways, you know, everybody has their ideas about it.
Okay, so
Do you wanna just stop a few minutes early and wrap up and?
yeah, we can. What I'm curious on the community use of school facilities, I know we looked at that. Did we,
You have some language in there in red.
I think we made it all the way through.
What did you ask? You asked about who runs the program. And Rebecca's the one that approves when you submit a
It goes
ticket.
to the principal first and then
Yeah,
Rebecca
and then
approves it.
Rebecca approves it, and then also, Jessica was gonna look through this one as well.
Okay, do we know if she has?
I asked her on her way out, she said she did not have time to get to
Okay,
it.
so then,
And asked her if she would get through, I think there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
By next policy meeting, and she said she would definitely try.
okay, well, that's all we can ask is for her to try. Cause I know the audit's the priority right
Yeah.
now. Cause yeah, there's all these forms.
That are attached to it.
And I hear you say Rebecca's doing it, but I believe, well, cause when you click on the thing, you go to the computer, go on the computer, You click the link, it takes you to this form that you just fill out. That form, you
Goes
just
to the
says goes to the
principal.
principal.
Mhm.
Okay, but what if, well, I guess that wouldn't matter because what if someone wanted to reserve the boardroom?
Then
Like
you-
the Rathdrum Chamber of Commerce. I know they use our boardroom. I
then
don't know
you
if
go
they've
to Rebecca.
Okay, I don't know if they've ever filled out a facility use request.
Yeah, I have no idea, but, I mean, everyone's supposed to.
That is correct. Everyone is supposed to. Okay. So then it gets approved by the principal or denied, and then it goes to Rebecca regardless either way,
Mhm.
and then Rebecca notifies. Okay. So it sounds,
The way, and she keeps like a calendar so that, you know, we're not overlapping.
right. Well, it says a master calendar is available online. That came from ISBA, which I did kind of look at it. We all did together, and when you click on it, it kind of gives you a very scary image of a calendar
Oh,
with like thousands of things in each cell for the days. So it was,
there's a lot.
there's a
Like
lot.
specific to the district calendar or individual school?
Individual schools.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay,
So, see, it,
Oh, yeah, that is
yeah, it's like, oh, lovelies.
So she puts all of them on one?
I'm
21.
guessing.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you for
night.
coming.
See
Thank
y'all
you.
at the next one.
Perfect. 2 weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good
night.
evening.
You too.
Oh, lobes of fall. See, plus 21 more.
Mhm.
That's like outrageous. So that is, I mean, it's a smidge intimidating.
I just don't know how you do that, cause you could do it specific to like a calendar for each
school.
school, but if I'm a parent and has kids at 3 different, it's nice to be able to look in that one day and see all of it. I mean,
Right.
Or trustee, instead of having to go to every single
Right.
school and look at every,
Yeah, that would be nice.
yeah, everything.
and you can't do it by like, you know, north, south, because you have Twin and Garwood that vacillate between the two.
Mhm.
So-
Well, what would be ideal is you have a drop down, like a little combo box where you could
Pick out which
unselect, yeah,
schools you
what
want.
you wanna see instead of
That
having
would
to
be
see
fancy.
everything. Yep, if you click any of the calendar controls up there, you don't get any of that. Like the calendar next to the month, does that give you anything?
Gives me
Okay.
the year.
And then what is that
Filter.
filter over
You go
there?
to the,
Click on the word filter. There you go, okay, so you could do it, so, yeah,
Okay.
okay, so
Oh,
people probably
so you could do
know-
it by school specific.
Uh-huh,
you should
Okay.
pick a couple and see.
All right. So let's do a Betty Kiefer classroom.
do an Apple
And-
classroom.
Okay. An Apple classroom.
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually,
okay.
let's do Apple cafeteria.
Okay. Let's do. All right. So we can get rid of that one. Not so bad. Okay. So if I
Search.
just search that.
Oh, look.
Nothing. No, it's still twirling. But there's nothing.
Yeah, so we could book Betty Kiefer and Apple cafeteria.
Sweet.
I was like, I don't think I've ever had the cafeteria booked. It's normally for
Well,
elementary.
you know what I've gotten lately, cause we've grown so much,
Uh-huh.
everybody's like, where do you have a group meeting? It's like, well,
Oh.
you have to go to the Apple Community Center, you know, but if that's booked or
Yeah.
the acoustics aren't that great.
Yeah.
They say, well, what about the school? I said, well, yeah, you can call them and
Yeah,
find out, you
Yeah.
know. But now I know they can come on here and,
you'd be better
you
to
know.
do the library.
Yeah.
The acoustics would be better.
Okay, so you could search it then.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's try something. Filter. Let's go to remove those, and let's go to John Brown cafeteria. Search.
oh, only one thing over there.
Well, I wonder where the base program is then.
I don't know, take off the filter and see where they put it. Scroll up.
Read filter.
Let me search all of them, yeah, let's see. Apple.
It's just at Ethel Elementary.
Yeah,
Oh, the gym.
yeah.
Okay. So, filter. Okay.
There you go.
Judo practice. Sweet.
Yeah, we used to give a lot of money to them, the Chamber of Commerce. We did spaghetti fit for them and all kinds of stuff.
Alright. Cool. Okay. So,
We wanna
we can
pause
end
recording.
the recording because we will end the meeting early at 7:56. Thank you all for listening.